You go to your mailbox and you find a postcard that is marked Dear Resident or Current Occupant, and you think, this is a form letter, not even a form letter, it's a postcard, it's bulk mail, chances are it gets pitched, because it doesn't really feel like someone is reaching out to you. You get a letter in the mail that has at least your specific name on it, and maybe you give it a read because it feels like somebody took at least a little effort to know who they were writing to. You send a text message to somebody and they reply with a text message. It says a little bit more of investment on their part, right? That they're responding in real time to the question or the message that you've sent them. But still, you don't know how distracted they are. We live in days where it's possible to be texting and in a meeting and watching television or something else at the same time, hopefully not driving at the same time. If somebody answers your message with a phone call, they're giving you even more of their attention, right? It's live, real-time conversation. You can hear the nuances in their tone of voice. They can hear yours and hear when you're being sincere or sarcastic, when you are emotional or when you are serious and straight-faced. If somebody talks to you by video, again, they're giving you even more of their attention, but still, they could be far, far away and with other things going on. You really want to show somebody that you are invested in what they have to say, or that you are coming to share what they're going through. You show up with them. In other words, there's nothing wrong with putting a message in writing or sending a letter to somebody. It can be a lovely thing. But if you really want to show somebody what's on your mind, how you think, or if you want somebody else to know that you were really there for them, you show up if at all possible, right? I mention this because as we get to the end of the prologue of John's Gospel, John has this challenging job of explaining how does Jesus relate to what came before in the story of God and the people. In particular, the people of ancient Israel were convinced that God had communicated to them before through the story, the Torah, the commandments, the law, the story of the scriptures of ancient Israel, which by the time John writes in the first century, those aren't so much lived memories as written scriptures that if you grew up in Judaism, you had read or heard those stories. They were written out in words. How does Jesus relate to that? Is Jesus less than that? Is it sort of now we're settling for a lesser new prophet who's coming? Is somehow Jesus even greater than what's come before? And the way John answers the question is to say, well, his wording is something like this. The law came through Moses. Fair enough. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. And then he concludes by saying, no one's ever seen God. But God the Son, who is close to the Father's heart, has made God known. It's again sort of a way you can tell John is wrestling with, how do I talk about Jesus? How do I talk about this one who is the Son of God? How do I talk about this Word of God who is with God but is also God at the same time? You can see he's reaching for the language we would eventually call the Trinity, right? That God the Father is God and God the Son is God and the Spirit is God. All three are one God and yet distinct somehow in these interweaving three. But John's point is to say, what we've been given in Jesus is not something new and different and lesser. It's not like saying, well, let go of your old beliefs in God, here's something completely new, here's a new God I'm introducing you to. But John's way of describing it is, it's something like the difference between getting a form letter and getting an in-person visit, getting a text message reply and getting somebody to show up. What we've been given in Jesus is God's own presence with us. In the same way, there's a huge, huge difference, a leap forward in how much you learn about somebody else and the quality of their presence when they're there in the room compared with reading a text message they've sent, perhaps half distracted. That's the difference, John would say, between the written words of the law of Moses and the coming of Jesus. It's not that anything was wrong with what we were given through God in Moses. It was not that anything was wrong or faulty with the Torah. It's not that it was lesser. He's not trying to say ancient Israel is bad and now I'm saying something good, but to say what we've been given before is like reading a written message. And now we've been given God's own presence in the human life of Jesus. God showing up with us. So that what Jesus does, God gives. God does. The people that Jesus meets, God has met face to face the people Jesus touches or weeps over, the people Jesus dies for, God dies for. John's willing to push that as far as it will go to say, in Jesus we've been given God's very own presence, with the difference of someone showing up in person compared to reading a letter they've sent you. We're going to be exploring that in these last verses of the prologue of John's Gospel this Thursday in the concluding session of our series, In the Beginning Was the Word. This Thursday at 1 o'clock, we hope you can join us around the table as we explore more of what it means that God has come to us in Jesus. See you then.